Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest, I'm very excited to introduce today's guest, is the real Jason Duncan. Hi, Jason.
Hello, Adi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. And I'm going to introduce you. We're going to have a great conversation today. And first of all, we need to give a big shout out to Carl Cox, because I've seen you, I read about you in his newsletters. So Carl Cox from 4D Strategy, I interviewed him for my podcast. He was a guest on, I was a guest on his podcast, and we collaborated on mutual clients, and I've known Carl for years, and he's a wonderful strategist. And also, he has also an accounting firm. So definitely check it out, and let's give him, and thank you for the introduction, Carl.
Yes, thanks, Carl.
Absolutely. Okay, Jason, so now let's introduce you in the proper way. So you went from unemployed school teacher to multi-million-dollar entrepreneur, and now you teach other founders how to exit the day-to-day without giving up ownership. It's pretty impressive. And you lead the Exeter Club, a mastermind for high-revenue entrepreneurs, and you created the XOS method to help them scale smarter. You also host The Root of All Success, where you interview top business leaders to uncover the real strategies behind lasting wealth and freedom.
That's right.
That's awesome. Good. And so let's start with your story. Unemployed school teacher to a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. So what happened?
So I taught 8th grade American history, and really, really loved what I did. I thought, honestly, I would be in education for the rest of my life. I was in my 4th year of teaching. It was a second career for me. I was in pastoral ministry before that for a long time, and then got sick of that. I went to become a school teacher and found myself having a very uncomfortable meeting with my principal in the spring of 2011. He sat me down. He said, "Jason, you're one of the best teachers we've got here in the building, in the county, actually. You're number one in the county for your test scores. Your students are performing really well. But unfortunately, I have to cut 2 teaching positions for next school year, and I'm having to cut your position." I didn't have tenure. I was the last guy hired in the building, and that's the way they made the decisions back then. And so I finished out
Jason,
the school.
I just have to say, I'm sure the kids loved you as a teacher.
Yeah, most of them. There were a couple that didn't like me, but
Well, of
yeah,
course,
the
you
kids
always
loved
have
me.
that has to happen. Otherwise, it's unnatural. It's kind of like when you go to somebody and you see all 5-star review, all 800, you go like, something is not right. You always have those people that complain.
Yeah, so we I loved the kids. The kids loved me. It was great. And so I found myself finishing out the school year, and during those last couple of months of school, I was trying to figure out what am I going to do next, because I certainly wasn't going to go back to my former career, and I didn't really want to go into the corporate world. And I had a lot of experience in sales back in my former career, because I was bivocational in most of my ministry days, and I'd been selling. And I thought, well, let me figure out what I can sell. I could probably sell something, and the idea of selling LED lighting into commercial buildings kind of came across in my desk as an idea. And I thought, you know what, I think I could do this. And so I started this company called, we rebranded later, but the original name wasn't this, but our rebranded name was ELS. Later, but I started ELS, and within our first full year in business, we did over $1 million in revenue, and we just continued to grow. And it was a wild, magical ride, and that's how I stopped being a school teacher and became an entrepreneur.
Wow, what a story. So then we present you as the real Jason Duncan. Tell us about the real part.
So a friend of mine was just asking me about this. We've known each other for a long time, and he had never asked me that question. He goes, you know what? I've never asked you this question. Why is that? Why do you use the real Jason Duncan? Well, ultimately, or originally rather, it started out as my Instagram handle. So when I signed up for Instagram way back a long time ago, over a decade ago, maybe longer than that, I had to choose something, and Jason Duncan was already taken, and I didn't want to put numbers or underscores or dots or dashes. And so I just looked at what other people were doing, and I noticed some people used the real and then their name, and I thought, well, I'll just use that. So that's how it started. There was no intent of that ever becoming a personal brand. And then fast forward many years after that, after I started on Instagram, someone reached out to me through LinkedIn, and she was a personal branding expert, a coach of sorts. And she said, I want to offer you a free personal branding a consult. I'm like, sure, whatever. Now, I wasn't the real Jason Duncan at that moment. I was just Jason Duncan on LinkedIn. I was Jason Duncan on Instagram, although the handle was the real Jason Duncan. I wasn't using the real anywhere. And I had a 30-minute conversation with her on a phone call, and she had done all her homework. She looked up my LinkedIn, she looked up Instagram, she'd gone, at the time I was on Facebook, I don't do that anymore, but she looked me up everywhere, and she said, your personal brand is the real Jason Duncan. You're authentic, you show up as yourself, you're real, you post pictures of you riding motorcycles and smoking cigars and hang out with your friends, and like it's just real. That's you. She goes, I recommend you go buy the realjasonduncan.com domain. It's available, and that should be your personal brand. And so I did. And so I became the real Jason Duncan as a result of that conversation. The lady never followed up with me, never once emailed me, contacted me. I didn't even pay for the consultation. And I have her to thank for this personal brand that I've built.
Absolutely. If you want to mention her name, and maybe she's listening.
I don't know. I don't even remember who she was.
It's like an angel that came over
Yes.
and talked to you. It's like the garden angel. I love that. That's a great story. Well, if you're listening to us right now, the real branding that helped the real Jason Duncan, let us know and we'll thank you.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so you told us the story, and you had this LED lighting selling company, and what happened? Like, did you exit? Like, how did you get from there to actually doing the Exeter Club?
So I think it was 2016 or early 2017, I hired a business coach for the first time. And I really, up to that point, didn't even know they existed. And I hired a business coach, and his name was BJ Howard, and BJ was amazing. God rest his soul. He passed away in 2021 or 22. But so he didn't get to see the result of a lot of the work that he helped me accomplish. But I hired him, and he helped our business tremendously. We grew in ways that we would not have been able to grow as a business. But what the growth that really he as a business coach helped with me more than anything was just my mindset. And I'm not talking about mindset work like mindset coaches do. And there's a place for that. And one of my best friends in the world is a mindset coach. We have a mindset coach in our mastermind program. So I'm not diminishing that, because I fully believe it and do a lot of mindset coaching myself. But what I mean here is that BJ helped me think about business differently than I'd ever thought about it before. Because my mind on business was something I just had to do to pay the bills. Now I was doing really well. I'd become a millionaire. We had a 7-figure bottom line. We were doing really, really well, but I didn't enjoy the industry. I didn't enjoy the business. I liked my employees. Well, most of them. I liked my employees. I liked the people I worked with, and my customers most of them were great. But I took that business opportunity purely because it was an opportunity, not because I wanted to do it or thought it would be cool. I said, I could do this and I think it'll work. And it did. And it did. So BJ helped me really think about that. Well, fast forward into mid to late 2018. I looked at BJ and I said, man, I think I want to sell this. I don't think I want to do this anymore. We're making really good money. I could sell. What do you think? And he goes, you can't sell. And I said, what do you mean I can't sell? He said, the reason you want out is the same reason no one will want in. You want out because the whole business revolves around you and you don't want to run it. And nobody wants to buy the business that requires you, and they don't want to buy a job. And that was for the first time I started thinking, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I spent the next 18 months figuring out how to get out of the daily operations without selling the business. And that's when the whole concept of exit without exiting was born.
Beautiful. I think it's we live in the day in and day out with what we do. We do one aspect of it in terms of giving the freedom to the business owners to actually extract themselves out of the business by taking what's in their heads in terms of the knowledge transfer and creating SOPs based on that.
Yeah.
But there is obviously other things that go into play when you are the owner. So let's talk about that. Like, what did you discover throughout those 18 months that you figured out how to extract yourself out of the business? What are the different pillars or the different parts of it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. And if the book, which I'll hold up here, and if your listeners want a free copy of this, all they got to do is go to therealjasonduncan.com/book and actually /free book. And I only do that for shows that I'm on. I don't do it for anybody else. So
I
your
appreciate
listeners
it.
can,
It's very generous.
yeah,
So
therealjasonduncan.com/free book. You just got to pay for the shipping and handling, and we'll send you a free copy of the book. But when I wrote the book, as with all books, things change after the book is published and you push it out there, right? I mean, if you go talk to anybody who wrote a great book, things change after the fact. Well, for me, when I wrote the book originally, I was writing it pretty fresh after I had done what I did. And I hadn't experienced the long-term effects of some of the things I did and the decisions I made. But you asked about the pillars. Well, the pillars that I wrote about in this book, there were simply 4 things that I did. It started with embracing delegation. So I had to do that first. And that's still the core stage that I teach in the XOS method, which was developed a couple of years after all this book was written. The XOS method starts with delegation, and that's where I started in this book. So that part didn't change. The second pillar that I wrote about in here was eliminate stress. And I don't play up that idea as much as I used to, although some of the teachings around that pillar are still present in what I teach, but it's not a stage in and of itself. The third is establish systems and processes, which I know that you'll be happy to hear. I knew that there had to be systems and processes because you can't run a business on memory. You have to run it on processes and systems. You can't run it on memory. And when we don't write them down, we're simply running it on memory. And that's not good. So that actually has stayed, but I've moved that to stage number 4 in our business XOS method. And then our fourth pillar that I wrote about here was invest in people. And actually what I've done is I've moved the invest in people and if you look at the XOS method, there are 7 stages. Stages 2 and 3 are assemble your support squad and build your A team,
let's go so our listeners know. So let's talk about the 7 stages of the XOS method.
Yeah. So if you look at the 4 things I wrote there, all of them have a spot in the XOS methods, except for maybe eliminate stress. It's more subtle. It's more of a mindset thing. But the 7 stages, very quickly, because I don't want to bore everybody. But the first one is
I think it's very interesting and interesting, and I'm sure our listeners are interested. So take your time.
Yeah. Well, we've got 7 stages. It starts with basic delegation. We do a lot of work in the Exeter Club to teach people what delegation really looks like and how to do it, because most entrepreneurs don't understand delegation. They think they do, but they don't. The second stage is assemble your support squad. And this is where you bring in the people you need. Maybe it's an admin, maybe it's a salesperson, maybe it's a coder, somebody that's got to do something technology, but you got to get the support squad that can do it. Excuse the phrase here, but the grunt work. Like, somebody's got to do the stuff. You can't be doing the stuff. You've got to be working on higher level stuff. So you need your support squad to do that. The third stage is building your A team. Now, these are the folks that you're going to rely on. These are the folks that are going to be there making decisions for you. And you don't just delegate tasks, you delegate decision-making authority, and you allow them to be making decisions. The fourth stage is systemization and processes and automation. That's when that happens. Now, a lot of people may say, and I don't know, you and I don't know each other. We met for the first time today, so you may disagree with what I'm about to say, but I'll say this. A lot of coaches and consultants want entrepreneurs to start with systems and processes. And they say, look, if you just systemize it, it'll be fine. What I have discovered, not only in my own experience, but also in coaching hundreds of entrepreneurs, is that if you start with systems and processes, but you haven't yet embraced delegation and you haven't built the support squad, you don't have an A team, you'll have really good systems that still rely on you.
You know, I agree with you 100% because people ask me, when should I start? I said, look, you have to have something in place. That's why when we work with companies, we don't work with startups. I mean, obviously you know, there might be exceptions if you have like a founder that already know what they want and they bring their team with them. I mean, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But you first of all you have to sell, you have to have marketing, and you have to sell something, you have to get things going, you have to have your team, you have to have some kind of a support system around you. So I do agree with you, because the systematization, look, we all have processes. When we wake up in the morning, we have the same process of making the coffee or drinking the water, right? Whatever you do, you not change it every single day. So it will take you so far. But then when you start having that company that is fast growing and lacking consistency, and you're looking into exiting, you're looking into scaling. So I do agree that the sequence that you have there is very important, because otherwise it's kind of like putting the rules of the game without players. You can't, the most important thing in a game, in a sports game, is that you have players, because if you don't have players, you can have rules, but
that's right.
Pretty boring. There's been nothing on the field.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that as an expert in processes, because
that's what I tell my clients too. So we're on the same page.
Yeah, and that also doesn't mean that you don't even think about systems and processes until you get to that stage. You still think about it, but when you get to stage 4, you have to start doubling down on it. And that's really where things start to change. And then stage 5 is when you start creating what we call a passive profits machine. A passive profits machine. And what that means is you have to look for cost areas in your business you can turn into revenue areas. You got to look at revenue areas that you can turn into recurring revenue areas. You got to figure out how.
Tell me about that. Let's talk about, like, give me an example of an area that you can make into a profit area where it wasn't before.
Well, I think every business is going to be a little different, and I'll use an example that we are still testing. So I don't have a success story per se, but I had a guy who was a client of mine in the Exeter Club, and he built fences. Right? There's nothing sexy about that. It's a blue collar. His company built fences. But we started talking about, well, how do we take this where it's very transactional? Mr. and Mrs. Smith hire you to build a privacy fence, or the local company hires you to put a fence around their building. How do you turn that into recurring revenue? It's profit now, but how do you turn it into a passive profits machine? Is there a way to do this? So we started exploring ideas of, well, is there a maintenance contract that you could put in place that would include a certain number of washings and stainings per season or per year? Is there gate mechanisms tend to fail. So is there a way that you could put in a recurring revenue that would allow them to call you and say, hey, our gate broke, and that's it. That's all they have to do. You go fix it. You don't charge them anything because you're being paid over time. What if there's other add-ons that you could do, like pressure washing, that might have to be done anyway, where you can show up and pressure wash their driveway or clean the side of their home. So when you get to stage 5, and this is the cool thing about the way the XOS method works, is that when you're in stages 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4, you're so involved in doing the business, you don't have time to think about how to be creative and look for profit areas. But once you've built those first 3 or 4 stages, now it's time to start thinking, wow, how could I turn this into a recurring revenue model? How could I turn this into something that I can get passively earning profits on a regular basis? And you can't do that if you're stuck in the weeds of a business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you step, it's brilliant because it's a ladder. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, good. Now you delegate it. You have the processes in place, so people know what they need to be doing, but you can also monitor that it's being done, or not even you, like you have the right people there, the right leadership team. Then it's the fun part of envisioning and finding out how you can actually increase the revenue and make it a recurring revenue, so the business actually is worth more.
That is correct. And then once you move into out of stage 5 and you got some passive profits coming in, now stage 6 is exit without exiting. This is when you pull away from daily operations altogether and your business can provide you with an income and a lifestyle that you desire without you having to be there to lift a finger to do all the work. And at stage 6, you get options. Stage 6, you can stay in stage 6 forever, or you can move to stage 7, which is selling your business. We call the exit, the full exit. Now, if you want to fully sell your business, if you do the first 6 stages, your business will be worth 30 to 50% more than it was before you started. And that's statistically proven. That's not something I'm saying for marketing purposes. You can go and look. When you get yourself extricated from the daily operations of a business, your business will be worth 30 to 50% more than the one right next door doing the same revenue, selling the same stuff. That's how important it is. Just like in my story, when I said, hey, we've got a 7-figure bottom line, let's sell this thing. And my business coach said, you can't, because everything relies on you.
That's right. That's exactly right. You know, Jason, when you look at it in terms of it's also when you sell a business, I was talking to a client yesterday, and she was telling me about a colleague of hers that sold the business, but part of the agreement is now she has to stay for 5 years. So my client said, it's all sounded very good except the 5 years. But if you have all those, I'm convinced that if you have all those steps in, there's no point nobody will ask you to stay there for 5 years, because the only reason why they will ask you to stay for 5 years is because they can operate it without you. But if it's all there, documented, the people are there, and even if the people leave, it's fine. It's all the systems are there, so you know how to replace and who to replace. And there is income coming in. Why would they even need you for 5 years?
That's right. That's right. You've got to make yourself dispensable.
Right.
Not indispensable. You got to make yourself dispensable. You've got to figure out, how do I, as the entrepreneur, make myself, I don't need to be here. Like, it can run. Now, I want to be very clear, though. This is not a lazy move. This is a very, very difficult move to make. And once you get there, it's the opposite of lazy. This is probably the hardest work you're going to do, but the most fulfilling work you're ever going to do, because you start working with your mind, you start looking at things. There's only really 3 things that any entrepreneur should ever really do. Number 1, set the vision for the company. Number 2, communicate the vision for the company. Number 3, build the asset. The company is an asset. And if you get to where you're only setting the vision, communicating the vision, and building the asset, you have reached nirvana as an entrepreneur. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And when you do that, the business value is going to grow. The employees and everybody in the company should enjoy their job more, because the owner is actually looking down the road and around corners before we all get there and are scared to death because we didn't see it coming.
Exactly. And especially in today's environment, with the fast changes that we're experiencing in terms of technology, you have to be ahead. You have to drive the business ahead so you're not falling behind.
Yep. If you don't, you will fall behind and you'll be stuck in a job for the rest of your life. And I looked at, I went from teaching school, making 38 grand a year, to running a multimillion-dollar company. Obviously, I was getting paid more, a lot more, but I just had a very high paying job. I had just created a job for myself. I still had to show up 50, 60 hours a week. Actually, I worked more than I did as a teacher, even though I worked a lot as a teacher. I showed up, worked more, had a lot more stress. Now, I made a lot more money. That's true, but it still was a job. I didn't ever create that business. Well, I hadn't until I made this decision. I had not created a business that could operate without me. And now that I figured that out and I'm showing other people how to do it, everybody wants this. Like, who wouldn't?
Right, because people, I mean, really entrepreneurs, they want the freedom. That's what they want to be entrepreneurs, but they really get the job. But what I noticed also is that we want that freedom, but then there is all these limiting beliefs, so all this, you kind of like get into this comfortable, okay, well, I'm just going to show up. I have a high paying job and I'm my own boss. Yes, I can take a vacation, really, not because my boss is approved it, is because I just don't even ask my boss, which is myself, because I can take one. It's all this going on. Like, what do you say to entrepreneurs where they see the program, they understand it, but then they go, I don't want to invest in good, yeah, I mean, I can, because part of it is investing in good people. You have to have good leaders. Costs money. What do you do when that fear comes up of, I don't want to spend that much money on people?
Well, I think there's a mindset that kind of is an undertone in everything that we do, which is why we have a mindset coach on our team inside the Exeter Club. What you think about, you bring about. And Earl Nightingale famously said, "What you become, what you think about most of the time." And if you think about your business as a job, and you think about your business as it has to use you and you have to be there in order for it to survive, then that is exactly what you're going to get. So we do a lot of mindset work with our clients to understand that the purpose of business ownership is not to own a business. It is for it to provide the lifestyle that you actually want. What lifestyle do you want? Do you want to travel? Do you want to start another business? Do you want to spend more time doing charity work, or do you want to spend more time with your family? What is it? Well, your business can provide that. And once you start understanding that, things start to change. We actually have a credo that we built for the Exeter Club called the Exeter's Credo, and there are 8 tenets. And those tenets are things like we stand against the hustle culture and this grind culture because we don't believe that's what entrepreneurship should be about. It should be about providing a lifestyle that you love and enjoy. So when people say, "Hey, I don't want to make that investment," well, that tells me that their mindset is still stuck back in the old days. They're still stuck with, "I have to do it all. It relies on me. I'm the hero of my business." And we've got to break the hero syndrome for them to move forward.
I agree. So who will be an ideal client for you? Like, who should join the Exeter Club?
So we work with entrepreneurs in the United States who are doing at least $3 million a year or more in revenue, or if they are making under 3 million in revenue, as long as they're netting 300K. And the reason we have these financial metrics is because there are things that you have to invest in. You're going to have to invest in people. You're going to have to invest in systems in order to do that. And if you're just barely eking it out, you're not ready to make those investments. So that's who we're looking for. Now, we're also looking for coachable entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people that are doing really good revenue, but they're just not coachable. They're fine with having a full-time job that they own. And that's okay if that's what you want. So you got to be coachable. And if you are considering an exit in the next 3 to 5 years or even sooner, then the Exeter Club is definitely for you. Because not only when you come in the Exeter Club do you get access to all the teaching, but we're going to give you a valuation of your business when you come in, and we're going to do another one at the end of 12 months, and we're going to guarantee a 30% increase in that value, or we're going to give you your money back. I mean, that's how much we believe in what we do. So if you're thinking about selling your business, now might be the time to join the Exeter Club so that you can get a valuation, have access to an M&A attorney practically anytime you want, have access to a finance coach, a mindset coach, a wealth management coach, access to me, America's Exit Coach. Like, we're going to work with you to get your business built so that you can sell it for maximum dollars.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Okay, so our listeners right now, they want to reach out to you. How can they do that?
You can go to theexeterclub.com, theexeterclub.com, and that's spelled just like the word exit with ER on the end. So exeterclub.com, and you can read all about it. And of course, that's buried within my website at therealjasonduncan.com, where you can read all about who I am, what I do, and our teachings, and everything that you want to follow there. We have a workshop coming up. We do 2 workshops a year. Our next one's coming up in July. I don't know when this is going to be airing, but we got a workshop in Nashville area in July. We do 2 a year in Nashville. So if anybody wants to come give it a taste, it's a pretty good way to do that.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we'll have all of that in the show notes as well. So our listeners can access it, go to your website, figure out whenever. I mean, this is an evergreen episode. So whenever you are listening to it, go to the website and you'll find the next workshop or the next mastermind, and of course also get the book. Jason, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. I think I know our listeners gained a lot of information and knowledge from this, and hopefully got very inspired to take the next step in terms of freedom from the day-to-day grind and really starting living the life that they want to live.
Well, thank you, Adi. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.